Hello, welcome to Knitting Advisor. I'm going to demonstrate here how to do the long tail cast on using the most popular method. For the long tail cast on, I'm going to use a medium weight yarn and I have a 4mm knitting needle. This one's a circular, but you can use any kind that you like. Now for this technique, I'm going to not start at the end of the yarn, but pull a long tail through. The amount you leave here will determine how many stitches you can make on your needle. Don't worry about measuring that just at the moment. We'll do some stitches and then come back and use those stitches that we've made to be able to estimate how much you'll need for your project. You also only need one needle for this, so I'll pull the other end out of the way. So to begin, I'm using the standard method here. There are one or two other ways of doing this. Drape the yarn over the needle and hold it in place with one finger. And now if I pull these two down, you can see I've got two yarns to work with. The one closest to me is the long tail. A lot of people at this point like to put a slip knot in here. It creates the first stitch and makes a corner for your knitting. I actually prefer not to have a slip knot in my knitting, so I'll show you how to do it without. And it's perfectly okay either way. If you want to put a slip knot in here and then continue, that's fine. So now hold on both of them together. Take your finger and thumb down between and spread out. Turn your hand around to face you and you'll see that you have this kind of slingshot shape where I'm pulling the yarn from between my finger and thumb. You create a stitch by making a loop in your base yarn and drawing a stitch through it made with the working yarn. And to do that, start at the bottom of your thumb here, closest to you, slide up, picking up the yarn on the way, and you'll have this E-shaped loop crosses over itself. Now take the needle tip over and around the other yarn. That's your first stitch. Bring that stitch back through the loop on your thumb and it's right there on the needle. Now to hold these all together at the bottom, I'm going to release my thumb out of there, place it back into that gap next to my finger, and then turn my hand like this. Now I'll pull them apart a bit and I'll rock them just slightly until this is up close to the needle. You can see I'm holding those two stitches apart though, and that's necessary because I don't want those to get too tight. So I'm now ready to start again. Slide up your thumb to make a loop, pick up a stitch, draw it through and tighten it. As you go on, you won't need to rock anymore. You can just pull with your thumb. Make a loop, pick up a stitch, bring it through and tighten it. It's important to tighten it up this way to stop this getting too tight on the needle. So make a loop, pick up a stitch, draw it through and tighten it. I'll show a couple of those slowly so that you can see exactly how it's working. There we go. Now, as I go on a bit, let's see what's happening here. I'm keeping these all separated out. You can see they're sitting with a gap between them. It's very important with this method to not let your bottom edge get tight. It's one of the drawbacks that can actually pull in a little bit. So I'm being very careful to keep this with lots of room in it. And this one's got rather long, so I can let go. So now you'll see I've got this nice rolled edge along the front, and on the back it creates a kind of a braid. But you'll see that the last stitch comes out from under the stitch next to it. It doesn't have a foundation of its own. And what I like to do is make one more stitch than I need, and then when I do my first row I will come along here and work the last two together, which gives a good foundation. So I'll make one more than I need. Now you'll see I let go. the yarn that's closer to me is the one that's the tail end. So I just need to hold on, put my finger and thumb in, and I'm ready to go again. So I'll make a few more here. And thinking about this bottom edge for a moment, I've heard a lot of people say that it's a good idea to use 2 needles together, or to use a larger needle so that your knitting doesn't become tight along the bottom edge. But really that doesn't get at the problem. What it does is give you very big stitches along the needle, and actually the binding at the bottom is what gets too tight. So that's where, if you pull up this way, that will still be the size you want it. So let's see how many I've got now. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19 here. And I want to go to 20 stitches, but I'll do 1 extra because this end one is just my starting loop. So that's 2 more. And you can see stopping in the middle, my next stitch is not necessarily exactly the same size. There we go, 2 more. If you find, particularly if you let go of your threads and pick them up, that the stitches along here aren't all identical size, I wouldn't worry too much, because when you knit along they'll all even out. Congratulations if you've been following along learning how to do long tail cast on with me. At this point, if you're new to the craft, I do recommend you go and check my videos on how to knit and how to purl to learn those skills. But when you're ready and you want to cast on a specific number of stitches for a project, come back, and here in the last bit of this video I'll show you how you can use these stitches we've made to estimate the amount of yarn you'll need to leave in the tail. We'll be taking them off the needle and measuring what we've used. Now you'll see I have 21 stitches here, and that gives me a chance to measure how much of a long tail has been used for those 20 stitches. So I'm going to hold it there, and I'm going to slide all these off and measure how much I've used. So I want to hold on to this end stitch. Now I might be able to catch it like this, but if you drop it, don't worry. You'll be able to undo that and find your end loop. So now hold the end loop and hold here where you finished and just pull them apart. And when we pull away the other thread, that is the length that it takes to make 20 long tail stitches. So this is how you can measure on your tail how much you need. So if I needed 200 stitches, for instance, I would just measure this 10 times, and that would be how much I would need. I would add more than that, so I would probably do it about 11 times, just because it's good to have a little in hand. But you also don't want to have way too much. Thanks for watching. Please go to knittingadvisor.com to check out our other videos and to leave us a suggestion of any other techniques you would like us to record.